The stars themselves were never the destination, they were merely the witness to the greatest test of human resolve the world has ever known. As the smoke cleared from the battlefields of the Second World War, the globe did not find the tranquil peace it so desperately craved, but instead awoke to a silent, freezing tension that would come to be known as the Cold War. It was a time when two titans stood face to face across a fractured Europe, representing two diametrically opposed visions of what it meant to be free and what it meant to live. For the United States, this was not just a geopolitical chess match, it was an existential struggle to prove that the light of liberty could outshine the shadow of authoritarianism. You could feel the weight of history in the air, a heavy, electric anticipation that suggested the next great frontier would not be measured in miles of land, but in the infinite reaches of the dark sky above us. In those early days of the 1950s, the world was divided by an iron curtain, a term famously coined by Winston Churchill to describe the ideological wall separating East and West. Americans watched as nations fell under the sphere of influence of the Soviet Union, and a sense of urgency began to take root in the heart of Washington and in the living rooms of every American family. It was a period of intense innovation fueled by the highest stakes imaginable, where every scientific breakthrough was a volley in a war without bullets. We were a nation that had just saved the world from the darkness of fascism, and now, we were called upon again to be the vanguard of Western civilization. The competition was fierce, and for a moment, it seemed as though the horizon was closing in on us, until something happened that would change the course of human history forever. On a crisp October night in 1957, the American public looked up at the sky and felt a sudden, chilling realization that we were no longer alone in the heavens. The Soviets had launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, and its steady, rhythmic beep echoing back to Earth was a wake-up call that resonated through every schoolhouse and factory in the United States. This was the moment of the great surprise. The technological lead we had assumed was ours had been challenged in the most public way possible. But where others might have seen a reason to despair, the American spirit saw a reason to rise. We didn't just want to catch up, we wanted to redefine what was possible for our species, turning a moment of national concern into the fuel for a fire that would burn all the way to the lunar surface. The response was nothing short of a total mobilization of American intellect and industrial might, leading to the creation of NASA in 1958. This was the era of the right stuff, where test pilots became the new pioneers, risking their lives in silver suits to push the boundaries of physics. We weren't just building rockets, we were building a future where the American dream was no longer earthbound. Every failure on the launch pad was met with a stubborn refusal to quit, and every success was a testament to the fact that a free people, working toward a common goal, can achieve the impossible. The tension of the Cold War provided the pressure, but it was the American character, daring, restless, and visionary, that provided the spark for the most ambitious journey in the history of mankind. As the 1960s dawned, the stakes reached a fever pitch with the arrival of a young, charismatic president named John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He didn't just offer policy, he offered a vision that captured the imagination of the entire planet when he stood before the people and declared that we chose to go to the moon not because it was easy, but because it was hard. This was a direct challenge to the soul of the nation, a call to greatness that required us to invent technologies that didn't yet exist and to solve problems that had never even been identified. We were living in a time of incredible flux, where the fear of nuclear war lived side by side with the hope of celestial discovery. It was a paradoxical age, yet it produced a level of unity and national pride that became the bedrock of the modern American identity. Before we continue this incredible journey through the stars and the history that shaped our world, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss your daily dose of audio history. If you are enjoying this story of American triumph, please take a moment to hit that like button right now. The journey toward the moon was paved with both brilliance and tragedy, reminding us that the path to the stars is often written in sacrifice. In January of 1967, the nation mourned the loss of 3 brave astronauts in the Apollo 1 fire, a moment that could have easily signaled the end of the space race. The grief was profound, but the resolve that followed was even stronger. Instead of retreating, NASA took the lessons of that tragedy to heart, rebuilding the command module from the ground up to ensure that the next men who went up would have the best possible chance of coming home. This resilience is the hallmark of the American story. We do not hide from our failures, We use them as the foundation for our eventual victories, ensuring that the lives lost were not in vain. By the time 1969 arrived, the entire world held its breath as the Saturn V rocket, a behemoth standing over 360 feet tall, stood on the pad at Cape Kennedy. It was the most powerful machine ever built by human hands, a tower of steel and liquid oxygen that represented the combined efforts of over 400,000 Americans. When those engines ignited, the ground shook for miles, and the roar was the sound of a nation throwing its heart over the fence of the atmosphere. Inside the small capsule at the top were 3 men who carried the hopes and dreams of a free world, embarking on a 250,000-mile journey into the unknown. They weren't just representing a government, they were representing the limitless potential of the human spirit. What many people don't realize is how close the Apollo 11 mission came to disaster during those final seconds of the lunar descent. As Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin approached the surface, the onboard computer began flashing 1202 alarms, signaling an information overload that could have forced an immediate abort. With less than 30 seconds of fuel remaining and the lunar module hovering over a field of boulders, Armstrong took manual control, his pulse racing but his hands steady. This was the moment of ultimate suspense, where years of preparation met a single second of raw, human intuition. And then, through the static of space, came those words that will echo through eternity: "The Eagle has landed." In that instant, the world stopped, and for the first time in history, we were no longer a single-planet species. The impact of that victory was felt immediately, not just in the halls of power in Washington, but in every corner of the globe where people looked up and saw the moon differently. The space race was the definitive proof that the American model of innovation and individual liberty was the most powerful engine for progress ever devised. We had won the race, but more importantly, we had expanded the horizon of what was possible for all of humanity. The short-term reflections of this period were seen in a massive surge of scientific interest among the youth, a generation of engineers and dreamers who saw that the impossible was just a milestone waiting to be passed. This was the ultimate high-water mark of the American century, a period where our prestige was unmatched and our influence was global. The technological dividends of this era were almost immediate and staggering in their scope, touching every aspect of daily life. The necessity of miniaturizing computers for spacecraft led directly to the development of the microchips that power the world today, effectively planting the seeds for the digital revolution. We saw the birth of satellite communications, which shrunk the world and allowed us to share information in real time, fundamentally changing how we interact as a species. Even the medical field was revolutionized, as the monitors used to track an astronaut's vitals in space became the standard for intensive care units in hospitals across the country. We didn't just go to the moon to bring back rocks, we went to the moon to bring back a better way of life for everyone on Earth. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to ensure you receive your daily dose of audio history. If this narrative is inspiring you, please show your support by clicking the like button before we move into the final chapters. Beyond the gadgets and the geopolitics, the space race left an indelible mark on the American psyche, creating a legacy of can-do optimism that defined a generation. It proved that when we set a clear, ambitious goal and commit the full resources of our national character toward it, there is no obstacle we cannot overcome. This era taught us that the greatest risks often lead to the greatest rewards, and that the fear of the unknown is the only thing truly standing between us and greatness. We looked at the void of space and didn't see a barrier, but a bridge to the future. That sense of pride wasn't just about beating an adversary, it was about the profound realization that we were capable of greatness on a scale that had once been reserved for the gods of mythology. The Cold War itself began to thaw slightly in the wake of our lunar success, as the sheer magnitude of the achievement forced a re-evaluation of the relationship between the two superpowers. While the competition remained, there was a new understanding of the shared vulnerability of our planet, captured perfectly in the Earthrise photos taken by the Apollo 8 crew. Seeing our world as a tiny, fragile blue marble hanging in the blackness of space fostered a new sense of stewardship and a realization that, despite our ideological differences, we were all travelers on the same small craft. This shift in perspective was a direct result of the courage it took to leave home, and it laid the groundwork for future international cooperation in space that continues to this day. In the years following the moon landing, the United States solidified its position as the world's preeminent leader in science and technology, a status that has fueled our economy and our influence for over half a century. The Apollo effect saw a massive increase in the number of Americans pursuing advanced degrees, creating a workforce that would go on to invent the Internet, lead the way in biotechnology, and pioneer the private space industry we see today. We are living in the house that the Cold War built, utilizing the tools and the mindset forged in the heat of that global competition. The pride we feel when we look back at those years is not just nostalgia, it is a recognition of the core values that make America a beacon of progress and a land of endless frontiers. The importance of this period also lies in its reminder that the greatest battles are often won in the minds and hearts of the people before they are ever settled on a map. By choosing to compete in the arena of exploration and discovery, the United States showcased the inherent superiority of a society that values the individual's ability to dream and to achieve. The Soviet Union could build rockets, but they could not replicate the spontaneous, grassroots enthusiasm and the entrepreneurial spirit that defined the American effort. It was a victory for the idea that freedom is not just a political concept, but the essential ingredient for the highest levels of human creativity and performance. This is the story we must remember as we face the challenges of the 21st century. As we look toward the future, with missions to Mars and beyond on the horizon, we must draw strength from the giants who came before us. The men and women of the Cold War era didn't have the benefit of hindsight. They lived through every moment of uncertainty and every terrifying what-if with grace and grit. They showed us that the American journey is one of constant expansion, a perpetual search for the next horizon to cross and the next mystery to solve. We are the heirs to a legacy of explorers who refuse to be grounded by the gravity of doubt. When we tell this story, we aren't just reciting dates and names, we are reaffirming our commitment to the pursuit of excellence and the belief that our best days are always ahead of us. The short-term reflexes of the space race also included a significant shift in domestic policy, as the government realized that national security was inextricably linked to the quality of our education and the health of our infrastructure. This led to unprecedented investments in schools and universities, ensuring that the next generation would be equipped to handle the complexities of a rapidly changing world. It was a time when being a scientist or an engineer was the ultimate aspiration for a young American, creating a culture that celebrated intelligence and hard work above all else. This cultural shift was perhaps the most enduring victory of the entire period, as it created the intellectual capital that has sustained our nation through decades of subsequent challenges. In concluding this chapter of our history, let us remember that the Cold War was not just a conflict of missiles and spies, but a proving ground for the human soul. The space race was the bright, shining thread that ran through a dark era, a testament to the fact that even in our most divided moments, we are capable of reaching for something sublime. We stood on the moon and looked back at ourselves, and in that reflection, we saw a nation that was brave enough to try, strong enough to fail, and wise enough to keep going. That is the American story, a narrative of triumph against the odds that continues to inspire pride in every heart that values liberty and the relentless pursuit of the unknown. The echoes of the Saturn V's roar still ring today, calling us to remember who we are and what we can achieve when we are united by a common purpose. We are the people who turned a beep in the night into a footprint on the lunar dust, and that same spirit of audacity lives within us still. As we turn our eyes back to the stars, we do so with the knowledge that there is no limit to what we can accomplish. The history of the Cold War and the space race is a reminder that even in the coldest of times, the light of human ingenuity and the fire of American resolve can illuminate the entire universe. Our journey is far from over. In fact, it is only just beginning. Thank you for joining us for this epic exploration of our past. If you want to continue uncovering the stories that shaped the world, please subscribe to our channel for your daily dose of audio history. If you found this journey as inspiring as we did, don't forget to click the like button and share your thoughts in the comments below.